Hello. Hello. So, in this video lecture, we are going to discuss about the strategies to develop listening skills. At first, we have to know what is the need for listening. So, the fact that listening is basic to learning and language learning is well established. Much of the information we acquire is through listening. Whether it is during a lecture or the radio or television, advice from people, instructions and directions, suggestions, and go on. A growing change in communication patterns has made the skill of listening more important than ever. So we have now BPO, customer care, sales, recorded railway schedules, or live problem solving, or malfunctioning gadget and telephone were short. So this makes it imperative that we learn to listen well, whether in a formal or informal context. Unfortunately, this is one skill that has often been neglected in the language class, and if at all any listening is done, it is done hastily as a part of the integrated skill approach. So, most of the listening that students do in class is listening to instructions and explanations by the teachers, and at home to moralizing by the parent. Although focused listening to different genres of literature has made a beginning in our classroom, the strategies is to listen to a particular text are seldom provided. So why was listening been neglected so far? So teachers felt that it was more important to present new language items to the class. They use listening only to practice these items, and they focused on emphasizing the skills that enabled more systematic instruction and evaluation, like grammar, reading, and writing. Listening has been viewed as a passive skill, so it is difficult skill to teach and not possible to assess listening comprehension, which takes place in some hidden recesses of the listener's mind. So the outcome of listening is not tangible like writing or speaking. Often, after a lot of listening practice, there is no perceptible improvement, which is frustrating for the teacher. So, teachers believe that listening activities take up a lot of teaching learning time and may require technical equipment. So, by over the years, teachers' experience with young learners has shown that listening is foundation of literacy. So, listening vocabulary is the first vocabulary of a child. A child acquires the vocabulary she listens or he listens around her or his or her. So exposure to new words through reading comes much later. We would like to discuss the impact of listening at school also. So the aim of teaching a language is to prepare the learner for life. Listening being a significant part of the business of daily living need to be practiced extensively. So learners need to be prepared to handle situations in life even beyond the classroom. And after leaving school, where they might handle situations in life even beyond the classroom. Or you can also say listening helps to develop a person's spoken competence, which get enriched with new grammatical structures where when a speaker uses expressions that are new to the listener. So new vocabulary as listening exposes a person to the vocabulary in context as new phonological patterns, which enables the learner to learn the permissible combinations of sounds and phonemic clusters as well as the part of the words in a particular language. So, per pragmatic information like deriving meanings from stress, tone, expression, and body language of the speaker, which is an indicator of speaker's meaning, intent, and purpose. Listening is basic to oral skills. As you can say, developing fluency in speaking has always been an important goal for language teachers. So often, in their enthusiasm to teach speaking, they have overlooked the fact that any oral communication involves a lot of listening. So even simple conversation cannot be sustained if one of the interlocutors does not have adequate listening skills. Just as speaking, listening too has its own fluency and accuracy, without which communication may break down. So, fluency means acquiring the pattern of listening, like paying attention to the key words, using non linguistic clues to arrive at the meaning, not having to listen word for word. Accuracy is ability to decode pieces of connected words word by word, noticing and boundaries. It can also say decoding skills. Hence, teacher in the classroom need to provide practice with goals and processes in mind. Listening should be practiced at every level of language learning or acquisition. And the goal of listening should be pronunciation, teaching to identify and discriminate different sounds, utterances, modeling like contradictions like we will. Okay, the pragmatic inputs like what certain utterances would mean in certain contexts, like I'm afraid of being. So, feedback whether they missed the main idea or misinterpreted the words of the speaker. Perhaps you missed that what I have said. So, these is are through which can be done through listening. The process are the following. The process is the decoding process and meaning making process. So, since much of the information made available to the students in through the voice of the teacher, through audio material, apart from the visual medium like books and the chalk board. The ability to understand speech in the target language becomes absolutely necessary. The teacher's role would be to provide adequate acquaintance in understanding the oral form of language learning. So most learners, they do not have concrete evidence of what they are making progress in the skill. Listening happens in a real time, which means it is supposed to understand that at the moment it occurs, or the moment in order to make a suitable response. So one cannot play it back in one's mind to decipher its meaning. So we can say listening and the other language skills. Listening inextricably linked in the exercise and development of other language skills. Say, for example, listening is directly linked to speaking. So although listening is an internal encounter, yet we can get an idea of the extent of comprehension when the listener encodes his or her response in the spoken form, whether in a conversation or while answering questions in different more formal and or informal situations. All children need to have a human model to interact with the linguistically in order to learn speech. Though an oral response is a significant way to measure comprehension, while listening, it may be borne in mind that many attentive listeners do not express their understanding in the spoken form. So, what is the need for modeling or good listening behavior? So, listening has made unpopular by adults, namely parents and teachers. Often, parents busy with the day-to-day occupations and tend to occur what the child is trying to say and rare respond with more than impatient noises. So, they do not make eye contact and show curious interest. So the teacher too, with the injunctions to listen, often make the act of listening an unpleasant experience. So on the other hand, when the students is speaking, teachers tend to interrupt to correct and improve them. So there are interruptions during a listening experience, which may be caused by bells, announcements, or peons coming in with notices. So it is therefore important that both teachers and parents model active listening by doing put aside their other work and pay attention to the child, make a note of significant points and ask questions to clarify or repeat to confirm that what is the word what the child meant. so that they are registering that the child is saying, make eye contact and lean forward to indicate interest and attentive behavior, ask questions to clarify, allow the child to complete what he or she is trying to say. Okay, so we can say that through this listening skills, you can understand what the other person or the other person is trying to say. So in real life, listening tend to be more difficult skill than reading, since the listening text is not permanent and there is no possibility of paying it back or referring to the text again. So one can, however, negotiate meaning by asking the speaker for clarifications or asking the speaker to repeat what he or she said. But most of the time, listening is done through discrimination of sounds and words, evolution and processing of the messages, which involves many other non-linguistic clues. So often emotional factor is very important, and these comprise the speaker's expression, the social setting, the speaker's stance, and the listener's own expectation. So the two major processes are involved in listening. One is decoding process, and the other one is meaning making process. So the decoding process is analyzing what is the speech signal, and meaning making process is the process used to build meaning by bringing in outside knowledge. So an efficient learner engages with the listening text and processes the language at both the level in order to arrive at the meaning. Needless to say, that the motivation to listening plays a significant role in the comprehension or ordering, making meaning of what it is said of a listening text. There are various sub skills that go into listening comprehension, but these are not discrete and often function in relation to each other in clusters. Hence, we cannot make hierarchies of the listening skills, and the decoding process is the process of translating the sound the listener receives into standard forms using clues like pronunciation and inflections. Hence, a piece of speech is reshaped into a larger unit of language. So, the listener's ears receive the phonemes of the language, which are clustered into syllables and the syllables into words. So, the words fall into familiar clusters, as in the phrases and clauses or lexical clusters. So the decoding happens at the phoneme level, syllable level, word level, word form level, and the chunk level. Then it happens to syntax level and intonation level, and lastly at the meaning level, followed by the response of the listener. So decoding process at the phoneme level, identifying the different consonants, vowel, syllable level, recognizing the syllable structures or paying attention to the variation of stress, and the word level, identifying the word boundaries, syntax level, isolating the phrases and clauses, making predictions using the beginnings of phrases and clauses, and the intonation levels, making use of the sentence stress, using intonation to support syntax. Thus, a listener uses the grammatical structures of utterances and pattern of intonation that binds together words in order to understand what is being said. Initially, these recording routines are conscious and require effort, but as the listener becomes more efficient, these routines become automatic. So, you can also say that identifying individual words and groups and building a possible meaning for them, identifying discourse makers which organize what is being said. Okay, so the meaning making process is the process which is in order to understand the importance of an utterance of a listener does not need decoding process alone. Although this seems to dominate in the early stage, to arrive at the full meaning of the speaker's message, the listener uses various non-linguistic clues and arrange a contextual information that may be independent of the actual word used. So, listeners' knowledge of the word, knowledge of the speaker, knowledge of what has been said so far. So, connecting groups of words of the non-linguistic features of the expressions, gestures, objects in order to get clues to the meaning. Using previous knowledge of the topic to guess what the speaker might saying about. So, it is important for the listener to decide whether the piece of information he or she is receiving is important or not, and how to relate to the previous piece of information or the context. So in brief, we can see that using we can sum up that the meaning making process as using the knowledge of context deriving meaning, storing the literal meaning of utterance and accepting an appropriate meaning and checking, adding to the meaning of by making inferences, conjecturing whether things are not clearly stated, and dealing with pronouns and linkers to make and connections, selecting information and recognizing redundant information, integrating information by connecting ideas, carrying information obtained so far, and noticing the connecting words used by the speaker. While interacting with the speaker, the listener needs to cope with the speed of the talking and accent of the speaker. So recognize the so yeah the recognize the speaker's intention in saying something, identify the speaker's mood, attitude to arrive at the real meaning, recognize the speaker's clues about things such as when to take a turn at the speaking, and when there is a change in the topic, and as well as the predict what the speaker will try to say next. The teacher need to decide whether he or she wishes to practice the decoding processes or meaning making process, but these processes can be clubbed so that they fit with one another. Efficient listening also requires discourse skills, which can be developed through conversation and extended talk. In conversation, the social interaction is more obvious, as such short-term response to previous turns and contribute to the development of the talk. Similarly, students can be exposed to extended talk, like the teachers little stories or the retailing stories, incidents from life, anecdotes, or interesting equips suited to the level of learner. So the exposure of to literature and narrative continues not just a discourse form but as a mode of mental organization, eliciting personal responses, retailing and extending the story, and creative use of language after the listening experience is over. So, if, effective listening is what is effective listening? Effective listening is during the course of the daily living, we listen to variety of things in various formal and informal situations. Things we listen to range from polite exchange and inquiries to listening to work, news, and lectures. We may have discussions on various or on serious and non-serious issues, or seek consultation and guidance from different kinds of professionals. So kinds of listening, there are different kinds of listening. Passive or marginal listening is there. Attentive listening, passive or marginal listening is this kind of listening happens when our attention is partially divided, like when children are doing their homework with with the television turn on the background, on when the students are discussing in different groups in the classroom. There is a momentary turning out, but there is enough consciousness to return to the activity on the hand. So in the classroom, the teacher's voice alerts students to the attention. This happens on many occasions in real life. Attentive listening is when there is a situation in life and accuracy of comprehension is involved for the information received is vital, as in directions, instructions, announcement, and introductions. Failure to understand or remember any portion of the information might lead to problems. So the importance of attention skills or negotiating skills become paramount in these situations. So the listener has to pay close attention to what is being said and stop to ask questions. So a teacher can develop activities based on directions and instructions, such as when the students carry out an experiment or a process of following the instructions step by the step. So responsive listening falls under the category of reciprocal listening. For it requires a response from the listener in order to continue with the communication. Thus, it is similar to attentive listening because the listener has to pay attention to the speaker's words in order to make an appropriate response. This requires a different mindset, and that can be practiced by creating situation where the students participate in discussion, have a conversation. A teacher may provide a theme or a situation to the students to discuss, and after that, it is students may also practice conversation in simulated conversation based on different situations of life. So selective listening is this kind of listening happens when the listener is looking for a certain piece of information in part of the listening context. It also happens when the teacher explains a part or process or material from which the students choose certain parts, and the teacher may ask the students to pay attention to certain parts of the listening text, or may give a few questions beforehand so that the students know what to look for in or the text and become alert when they think the portion is coming. So appreciative listening is pleasurable activity wherein a listener settle down to enjoy a dramatization, a story or a poem. Creative listening is the process of developing new and original solutions to problems presented through the spoken word, and it is also the act of entering imaginatively into the experience, the setting, and the feeling of the character in a story. And analytical or critical listening is when the listener needs to be careful, accurate, and attentive in order to make inferences and value judgments regarding situation, process, places, persons, or things. So the factors that influence listening is there are various factors that influence, as you can say, there are certain physical condition as a hearing problems, fatigue, pain or loss, temperature, humidity, sweating, shivering, discomfort. As you can say, the distracting noises in the environment, psychological factors that may interfere with the listening skills, or effective listenings can be says that boredom, lack of interest in the subject, improper attitude towards school and teacher, prejudice and misconception about the topic. Experiential background is that attitude of the people grow out of their pleasant and unpleasant experiences. This may lead to lack of interest, which may be marginal or totally absent. So, listening vocabulary, it is sent to the children to not hear ideas that are beyond their understanding, and words that they are not in the listening vocabulary are not paid attention. So hence it is important for the teacher to build the students listening vocabulary. Approaches to listening is, there are some approaches which is direct approach, integrated approach, direct integrated approach, the incidental approach, the eclectic approach. So the direct approach is focused listening activities that can be organized to enable students to realize the importance of listening. The teacher can also discuss what the listening process involves and enumerate the characteristics of the good or poor listening. An integrated process is at times when teacher may reorient a reading or writing task and integrate with teaching or listening. The students may be asked to listen to the text and later read a summary to find out whether the summary is accurate or not. An incidental approach is, it is the most common occurrences in the classroom where the teachers draws the attention of the learners to various things during the teaching learning process, since the information provided in incidental, which does not request student to do a task, may do not tend to listen carefully enough to retain the information they receive. Thus the eclectic approach is a combination of approaches, where the teacher, while integrating listening activity with other skills, focuses students attention what they need to listen and how. So we can also say the process of the listening comprehensions are there, and what the difficulties and the teaching listening as the students feel insecure. There are some difficulties in teaching listening. So students feel insecure and insecure doing listening activities, as they find it difficult, as they are not sure whether they are making progress or whether there is any concrete evidence to prove that. So much listening happens in real time and has and one has to catch the meaning of what is said and give an appropriate response. So we can say that listening actively by putting aside whether whatever they are doing, make eye contact and show that they are listening by nodding or asking questions. So this is the main thing of the listening skills, Mm, and the strategies of listening skill to develop listening skills among the students. Thank you.